The package arrived on a gray, rain-drenched afternoon, the kind of day where the sky seemed pressed too close to the earth, swollen with storm clouds that refused to break. Daniel nearly tripped over the parcel as he stepped onto his porch, his arms loaded with groceries. It sat there, heavy and squat, its brown paper wrapping darkened from the drizzle. No return address, just his name. He carried it inside, setting it on his cluttered kitchen table, brushing aside an empty coffee cup and a stack of unpaid bills. The paper tore away easily, revealing an old wooden box. The scent of dust and something metallic, copper maybe, rose as he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in a bed of faded yellow cloth, was an antique rotary phone. The black bakelite surface gleamed under the kitchen light, polished despite its age. The dial was worn, its metal edges dulled from decades of use. The earpiece was cold when he touched it, heavier than he expected, like holding a piece of history. A folded note was tucked beside it. The ink had bled slightly into the paper, but the words were still clear. "This phone helped me, and now it will help you. But remember, every gift has a cost. In the end, you'll understand why it's worth it." The signature at the bottom was unmistakable, Uncle Victor. Daniel frowned. His uncle had died nearly 2 months ago, leaving behind a reputation of eccentricity and bad luck. A gambler, a man who lived wildly and vanished without warning, only to resurface with pockets full of winnings and dark circles under his eyes. His mother had always warned him not to get too close. And yet here was his final gift. Daniel turned the phone over in his hands. There was no plug, no visible way to connect it to anything, just a relic from another time. Still, there was something unsettling about it. That night he placed it in the living room on a small side table beside his worn-out couch. Rain pattered against the windows and thunder rolled in the distance. As he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he swore he heard it. Click, click, click. The slow, deliberate turn of the rotary dial. His stomach knotted. He sat up, heart pounding, listening. The apartment was silent now. The only sound was the storm outside. It must have been his imagination. But as he turned over, forcing himself to sleep, the thought lingered like an itch beneath his skin. Who would it call? The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the world damp and gray. Daniel was halfway through tying his tie when he heard it. Ring, ring. He froze. The sound didn't belong. His apartment was quiet, save for the hum of his fridge and the distant chatter of morning traffic outside. Ring, ring, slow, deliberate, unmistakable. His eyes darted to the living room. The antique phone sat exactly where he had left it, dark and unmoving, yet the ringing filled the air, clear as day. His breath came shallow. It wasn't plugged in. There was no way. Ring, ring. The third ring jolted him into motion. His pulse hammering in his throat, he stepped forward, half expecting the sound to stop the moment he got close. But the phone kept ringing, as patient as something waiting to be answered. His fingers hesitated over the receiver. A coldness radiated from the bakelite handle. He lifted it slowly, pressing it to his ear. At first there was nothing, then, "Good morning, Daniel." The voice was calm, steady, and strangely familiar, though he couldn't place it. It had no accent, no telltale rasp or age, just a smooth, knowing tone, like someone who had been expecting this conversation for a long time. His mouth went dry. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants to help. You're running late. When your boss asks for volunteers today, raise your hand. You'll be promoted." A sharp chill ran down his spine. "What? How do you—" Click. The line went dead. Daniel stood there, the receiver still pressed to his ear, his heartbeat thudding against his ribs. The voice had been so calm, so certain. He turned the phone over, inspecting it again. No plug, no cords, nothing. His alarm buzzed from the bedroom, reminding him he was, in fact, running late. Hours later, he had pushed the phone call out of his mind by the time his morning meeting rolled around. The usual dull murmur of office life surrounded him. Clacking keyboards, low conversations, the smell of burnt coffee wafting from the break room. Then his boss, Mr. Cleary, cleared his throat. We have an open position. It's a step up, a pay increase, more responsibility. If anyone's interested, we'll start interviews next week." Daniel's pulse spiked. The voice's words slithered back into his mind. "When your boss asks for volunteers, raise your hand." His fingers twitched. He wasn't even qualified for the promotion. The job required experience he didn't have. His coworkers sat in silence, waiting. Before he could stop himself, his hand went up. Mr. Cleary looked surprised. "Daniel?" He swallowed hard. I'd like to be considered." Cleary studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right, let's talk after lunch." The moment passed. The meeting continued, but Daniel barely heard the rest of it. By the end of the day, he had the job. And in the back of his mind, beneath the excitement and disbelief, a new thought settled in like an unshakable shadow. The phone had been right. Daniel couldn't stop thinking about the phone. The voice had been right. He had been promoted. It wasn't just luck. It wasn't just timing. The phone knew. He tried to tell himself it was coincidence. Maybe his boss had been considering him for a while. Maybe he had manifested it somehow. But deep down, he knew the truth. Something was guiding him. That night, he found himself staring at the phone from across the living room, its black surface too smooth, too expectant. It didn't ring. It didn't move. But he could feel it, waiting. And then, at exactly midnight, ring, ring. Daniel flinched, breath hitching in his throat. His body tensed as he stood. The first call had been real, and now his feet moved before his mind could catch up. He picked up the receiver, pressing it to his ear. Silence. Then the familiar, calm, measured voice. "Go to the gas station tomorrow, buy a lottery ticket, use these numbers." Daniel's fingers clenched around the receiver. "Who are you?" 4, 9, 17, 23, 44. His breath came short. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing, yet." Click. The dial tone buzzed softly in his ear. The next morning, despite every rational part of his brain screaming against it, he stopped by the gas station before work. His hands trembled as he filled out the ticket. 4, 9, 17, 23, 44. He stared at the numbers for a long time before sliding the ticket across the counter. The cashier barely glanced at him as she printed his entry. He didn't check the results right away. The thought of it terrified him. If he lost, then it was over, just a bizarre coincidence. But if he won? The ticket sat untouched in his wallet until that night. His hands were clammy as he pulled up the results on his phone. One by one, the numbers matched. First 1, then 2, then 3. By the time he reached the last number, his vision blurred. He had won. Not millions, but enough. $10,000. More money than he had ever held at once. Daniel sat there for a long time, the ticket clutched in his fist, his stomach churning with excitement and dread. Because now there was no doubt. The phone wasn't just some strange heirloom, it was something else, something watching him, guiding him, and it had just changed his life. Daniel stopped questioning the phone. At first he had convinced himself he was testing it, following its advice just to see if it would work. But deep down he had already surrendered, because it always worked. Every call, every word, every cryptic instruction led to something better. One evening the phone rang as he was brushing his teeth. Ask for another raise tomorrow. He had only been in his new position for a week. It felt ridiculous. But the next day, after an agonizing internal debate, he went into Mr. Cleary's office. "I've been taking on a lot more responsibility. I think my pay should reflect that." Cleary leaned back in his chair, studying him. Daniel braced for rejection. Instead, Cleary sighed. "You know what? You're right. I'll approve a salary adjustment. 5,000 more a year, just like that." Then there was Lisa, the girl he had been interested in for months but had never had the nerve to talk to. The phone rang that night. "Talk to her tomorrow. She likes you back." He laughed. It sounded absurd. But the phone had been right about everything else, so the next morning he took a chance. Lisa's eyes lit up when he spoke to her. They made plans for coffee. One date turned into 2, then 5, then 10. One evening he was watching TV with Lisa curled up beside him when the phone rang again. "Invest in Solaris Tech. Do it before the market opens tomorrow." He had never invested in stocks before. But he took the risk. The stock doubled in a week. By the end of the month, Daniel was making more money than he ever had. One morning, as he was about to leave for work, the phone rang again. "Avoid your usual commute today." He hesitated. The warning sent a chill through him, but he followed the advice. That afternoon he saw the news. A semi-truck had jackknifed on the freeway, right on his usual route. 3 dead, several injured. A deep, uncomfortable thought settled into his chest. The phone wasn't just helping him, it was protecting him. Daniel stared at it from across the room. How much did it know? How far did its influence reach? It didn't matter. He was hooked. His life had never been better. Then the first death happened. The first death didn't feel like it had anything to do with him. It was someone he barely knew, Aaron Holtz, an old friend from high school. They hadn't spoken in years. Daniel found out about it on Facebook, a memorial post. A dozen people sharing old photos, laughing emojis replaced with crying ones. Hit by a drunk driver, died instantly. It was tragic, but random, an accident. Still, something about it unsettled him. That same day the phone rang again. "You don't need to worry about your debts anymore. Someone will handle it for you." That night he got a notification from his bank. His student loans had been wiped clean. No record of the payments, just gone. It was exhilarating. It was impossible. And then, the second death. This time, it was Peter Delaney, a former coworker. The same coworker who had been up for the promotion before Daniel got it. Dead from a heart attack, 36 years old. No prior conditions, just collapsed at his desk. Daniel sat staring at his phone for a long time after that. A creeping, sick feeling curled around his ribs. The first death had been a fluke. A tragedy, yes, but completely unrelated. But two people, both connected to him in some way. The phone rang again that night. His hands trembled as he picked it up. "You know what's happening, don't you?" His throat went dry. "What are you?" His voice cracked. "What the hell are you doing?" The voice was calm, patient, knowing. "Every gift has a cost, Daniel. When you receive good fortune, misfortune must go somewhere else." A cold sweat broke over his skin. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. "You've been passing it along." His stomach churned. The world tipped sideways. He had thought the phone was helping him. He had thought it was making his life better. But now he saw it. Every time something good happened to him, something terrible happened to someone else. His debts vanished. A friend died. His promotion? The other candidate's heart stopped. His new life? Carved out of someone else's suffering. Daniel dropped the receiver as if it had burned him. But the voice's final words still echoed in his mind. "If you stop picking up, bad luck will come for you instead." Daniel barely slept that night. His thoughts spiraled, unraveling through the early hours of the morning. Every moment of good fortune replayed in his mind, now tainted by the realization of its cost. How many times had he followed the phone's advice without question? How many people had suffered for his success? By dawn, a decision solidified in his chest. He would never answer the phone again. That morning, the phone remained silent. For the first time in weeks, Daniel went about his day without its influence. No whispered instructions, no guiding hand. He felt uneasy, like something had been ripped from him, but he reassured himself. This was the right choice. Then everything started falling apart. It began small, a rejected bank transfer, an issue with his paycheck. His morning coffee spilled onto his lap out of nowhere. Then Lisa called. Her voice was cold, distant. "I think we should take a break." It felt like a punch to the ribs. "Wait, Lisa, what's wrong? Did I do something?" "I don't know," she hesitated. "It's just, I have this bad feeling about us, like I shouldn't be here." A bad feeling. Daniel's blood ran cold. She was supposed to be his. Then the next blow came, a fraud alert on his bank account. He checked his balance and his stomach lurched. 0. Every cent, every penny of his newfound wealth, gone. "Impossible," he whispered. He had never even used that account online. How had someone... The realization hit him like ice water. This was the price. If you stop picking up, bad luck will come for you instead. He had stopped answering, and now the bad luck had nowhere else to go. That evening, as he drove home, his hands were shaking. He barely noticed the rain streaking his windshield. His thoughts churned, scrambling for a solution. Then, his brakes failed. One moment he was speeding down the freeway, his heart hammering. The next, he pressed the pedal and felt nothing. No resistance, no control. The car skidded, spun, slammed into the median. The world blurred into steel and asphalt and shattering glass. When he came to, his ears rang, his vision spotted with red and white lights. A stranger was pulling him from the wreckage, their mouth moving, but Daniel couldn't hear them. And then, cutting through the static, ring, ring, his breath caught in his throat. Somewhere nearby, in the wreckage, in the dark. The phone was ringing, waiting for him to answer. The ringing followed him. Daniel stumbled out of the wreck, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. His body ached, but he was alive. His car, however, was totaled, a crumpled husk against the freeway barrier. People gathered. Someone was calling for help, but Daniel barely heard them, because the phone was still ringing. He turned his head, scanning the wreckage. There, among the shattered glass and twisted metal, the antique rotary phone sat perfectly upright on the pavement. Pristine, untouched. It wasn't possible. It had been at home. He had left it in his apartment. Yet here it was, its dial glowing faintly in the dim evening light. Ring, ring. Daniel's breath shuddered out of him. He knew what would happen if he didn't answer. The phone had warned him. If you refuse to listen, your luck will rot. He couldn't ignore it anymore. Not if he wanted to live. Slowly, with shaking hands, he reached for the receiver. It was cold as ice. He lifted it to his ear, throat tight. The voice greeted him, as calm and patient as ever. Are you ready to listen again? Daniel's fingers clenched around the receiver. Yes. A pause. Then, good. Now pay attention. You have two choices. He swallowed hard. What choices? You can pass it on. Daniel's breath hitched. Find someone else. Give them the phone like your uncle gave it to you. Let them take your place, and you will be free. He squeezed his eyes shut. And if I don't? Then the bad luck stays with you until there's nothing left. A cold weight settled in his stomach. That was what had happened to Uncle Victor. And now it was his turn. Daniel's grip on the receiver tightened. He thought of Lisa, of his job, of the wreckage around him. The price of ignoring the phone was steep. He had a way out. But it meant choosing someone else to suffer. The phone waited, silent. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. Who? The voice gave a soft, pleased chuckle. You'll find the right person. When the time comes, you'll know. Click. The line went dead. Daniel lowered the receiver slowly, staring at the phone. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. The choice had been made for him because he wasn't ready to die. Now he just had to find someone else. Someone to take his place. Daniel barely remembered the rest of that night. The police arrived. A tow truck took what was left of his car. Paramedics asked if he wanted to go to the hospital, but he refused. He was fine. He was alive. And the phone came home with him. It wouldn't let him leave it behind. Even now, as he sat in his dimly lit kitchen, it rested in front of him on the table. Silent, waiting. He had made his choice. He had to find someone else. But the thought churned in his stomach like something rotten. How had Victor done it? How had he looked at someone, a friend, a stranger, anyone, and decided they deserved to suffer? His hands trembled as he reached for the phone. The bakelite surface was smooth under his fingertips, as if the dial had never been touched. It was eternal. No, not if I get rid of it. A desperate idea took root in his mind. What if he destroyed it? No passing it on, no choosing someone else, just gone. Daniel grabbed the phone, his movements jerky, frantic. He left his apartment without a jacket, the cold night air biting his skin. The backyard behind his house was empty. The ground still soft from recent rain. Perfect. He snatched a shovel from the communal storage shed and began to dig. Faster, deeper. The phone remained silent, even as he dropped it into the hole and shoveled dirt over it, even as he patted the soil down with his boot, even as he stood there panting. It was over. Daniel exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. He had won. Hours later, the smell of coffee woke him. For a moment he almost felt normal. Then his stomach twisted. The phone. The memory slammed into him like a fist, the calls, the deaths, the choice. Had he really done it? He sat up, heart hammering. He had buried it. He had left it in the dirt. It was gone. Right? Daniel forced himself to his feet, his movements slow, robotic. He stepped into the kitchen, rubbing his face. Maybe he would finally be free. Maybe... His breath caught. His blood turned to ice. The phone was sitting on the counter. Perfect, clean, untouched. Daniel staggered back. His chest felt tight. He had buried it. He had seen it covered in dirt. But here it was, as if it had never left. And then... The rotary dial began to turn, slowly. Click, click, click. The phone was dialing a number on its own. Daniel couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Somewhere, far away, a phone was about to ring, and someone, somewhere, was about to pick up. Daniel couldn't move. The rotary dial clicked, methodical and deliberate, like a hand unseen was making the call. The phone sat gleaming on the counter, untouched by the dirt he had buried it in just hours ago. His heartbeat pounded in his skull. Who was it calling? A number he didn't recognize, but the phone did. The dial stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then ring, ring, not here, somewhere else. It was calling someone. A second passed, another, then a soft, distant click. Someone had answered. A breathless silence stretched between Daniel and the receiver. Then the voice returned. Not calm this time, not patient. This time, it was final. Time's up, Daniel. The room tilted. His lungs squeezed tight. No, wait, I did what you asked. I didn't ignore you. You hesitated. You tried to break the cycle? Daniel's stomach lurched. I'll pass it on. I swear It's too late. A searing pain split through his skull. His knees buckled, and he collapsed against the counter, gasping. A horrible pressure built inside him, pressing against his ribs, crushing his lungs. Dark spots swarmed his vision. His body wouldn't move. Something was reaching inside him, twisting, pulling. Every gift has a cost, Daniel. His fingers spasmed against the floor, his mouth opened to scream. But no sound came out. The pressure built to a breaking point, and then everything went dark. The next morning, the apartment smelled of dust and static. The coffee maker gurgled lazily, filling the silence. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, streaking across the kitchen floor. Daniel did not wake up. His body sat slumped against the counter, eyes open but vacant, a faint, lingering smile on his lips, as if he had understood something at the very last moment. His phone, his real one, buzzed on the table. Messages, missed calls, no response. And on the kitchen counter, the antique rotary phone sat in perfect silence, waiting. 2 weeks passed before anyone came looking for Daniel. His sister, Emily, was the one who found him. She had been worried. His calls had stopped, his texts unanswered. At first, she assumed he was just busy, but after days of silence, the gnawing worry became unbearable. She used the spare key he had given her years ago, stepping into his quiet apartment. It smelled stale, untouched, as if time had stopped the moment Daniel had drawn his last breath. The sight of him made her gasp and stumble back. Her brother sat against the counter, his head slumped to the side. His eyes were open, but he was gone. His lips were curved slightly, eerily. Not quite a smile, not quite a grimace. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, dialing 911 with numb fingers. Paramedics arrived, followed by the police. There was no sign of struggle. No wounds, no drugs, no forced entry. Probably a sudden cardiac arrest, one officer muttered. Could have been a brain aneurysm. Emily barely heard them. She was too busy staring at the package on the kitchen table. It sat there, perfectly wrapped, as if it had been waiting for her. A small note was tucked under the ribbon. For you, this will help. Daniel. She swallowed, her throat dry. With shaky hands, she peeled away the wrapping. Inside was an antique rotary phone. Its black surface gleamed under the dim kitchen light, its dial worn from decades of use. Emily ran her fingers over it, shivering at how cold it was. And then, ring, ring. Emily flinched. The phone's sound was deep and rich, vibrating through the small apartment. Her heart pounded. She turned toward the paramedics, the police, but they were busy, distracted. No one else reacted to the sound. No one else could hear it. The ringing filled her ears, louder, insistent. She bit her lip. Her fingers hovered over the receiver. The phone waited. Finally, she answered. "Hello, Emily." The voice was smooth, familiar. It spoke as if it had been expecting her. "I have some advice for you." Hey guys, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Thanks. Daniel Whitmore had been in real estate long enough to know when a house wanted to be sold. Most homes hummed with a quiet kind of life. Years of families, love, arguments, celebrations, all soaked into the walls. A good house wanted to be lived in. This house, it had been waiting. He stood on the grand porch of 142 Blackwood Lane, forcing a confident smile as he watched the young couple inspect the property. The house had been listed for decades, passed from agency to agency like a cursed relic. The price had been slashed, and still no one bid, until Mark and Lisa Caldwell. Lisa ran her fingers along the carved wooden banister as she stepped inside. "It's beautiful." Mark whistled, eyes scanning the high ceilings, the sprawling staircase. "And in our budget?" Daniel laughed, the well-practiced chuckle of a man dodging an ugly truth. "You won't find a deal like this anywhere else." The house seemed perfect. Dark wood floors gleamed, despite the fact that no one had lived here in decades. Sunlight filtered through massive bay windows, illuminating dust-free furniture that shouldn't have been there. The place was staged as if it had never been empty. If they noticed, they didn't mention it. Lisa beamed. "We'll take it." Daniel felt the words settle in the air, thick and final. A breeze moved through the foyer, a strange, low, creaking sound drifting from above, like the house exhaling. Lisa frowned. "Did you hear that?" Daniel cleared his throat. "Just the house settling." He moved them quickly through the paperwork, hands steady despite the cold sweat on his back. He had never sold this house before. He knew that. But something about the moment felt familiar. When Mark scrawled his final signature, the floor beneath them gave the faintest vibration. Not a tremor, not a creak, a pulse. Lisa shivered. "Weird." Daniel forced a smile. "Congratulations, it's all yours." The couple grinned, excited, naive. Daniel walked to his car, keeping his pace even, ignoring the urge to look back. When he pulled out of the driveway, he finally allowed himself to check the rearview mirror. The house stood silent. The windows, dark now, almost black, watched him leave. And though it was impossible, Daniel could have sworn it was bigger than it had been that morning. The first week in the house was a dream. Lisa spent her days decorating, rearranging furniture, and planning future renovations. Mark worked from his upstairs office, thrilled by the quiet. At night, they curled up by the fireplace, drinking wine and basking in their new home. Then, on the 7th day, Lisa found the door. She had walked the upstairs hallway countless times. It wasn't particularly large, 4 doors in total, leading to the master bedroom, a guest room, the office, and a bathroom. But today there was a 5th, a door she knew hadn't been there before. Lisa stopped mid-stride, her heart knocking against her ribs. It was just a simple white door matching the others perfectly, but she knew. "Mark?" Her voice was too loud in the empty house. Footsteps thumped against the stairs as Mark appeared beside her, still holding his coffee. "What's wrong?" Lisa pointed. "That door, that wasn't there yesterday." Mark frowned. "What are you talking about? It's just a closet, right?" Lisa reached for the brass knob. It was ice cold. She twisted it slowly. The door groaned open, releasing a breath of stale, rotting air. Inside was a child's bedroom. Dust coated every surface. A tiny 4-poster bed stood against the wall, its canopy sagging with age. A toy chest sat half open, stuffed animals spilling out like forgotten corpses. A wooden rocking horse rested near the window, frozen mid-motion, its painted eyes cracked and hollow. Lisa stepped inside. The floorboards creaked beneath her weight, releasing the scent of mildew and something sour. Mark coughed. God, it stinks in here. Lisa moved toward the wall, running her fingers along the faded wallpaper. Tiny sailboats decorated the surface, but where the paper peeled, something was underneath, a darker layer. She hooked a fingernail beneath the curling edge and tugged. The wallpaper peeled away in long, dry strips, revealing something scratched into the wood beneath. Fingernail marks, deep, jagged, desperate. Lisa staggered back. Someone was trapped in here. Mark swallowed hard, scanning the room with fresh unease. The air felt thicker now, wrong. He grabbed her hand. Let's go, maybe the previous owners. A soft creak cut him off. Both turned. The rocking horse had moved, not much, just a few inches forward. But it had moved. The door slammed shut behind them. The house sighed. Lisa refused to sleep in the house that night. They checked the room again, hoping to find some logical explanation. Maybe the door had been there all along. Maybe they just hadn't noticed it. Maybe the rocking horse had shifted because of uneven floors. But deep down, they both knew the truth. It hadn't been there before, and now it was. Mark double-checked the locks, even propped a chair under the front door handle for good measure. Lisa lay stiff in bed beside him, fingers clenched in the sheets, listening, waiting. The house did not settle that night. It breathed. The next morning, Mark woke to find Lisa already up, pacing the hallway. I think I'm losing my mind, she muttered. Mark rubbed the sleep from his eyes. What are you talking about? Lisa gestured toward the bathroom door. It was on the left side of the hallway, right? It's always been on the left. Mark blinked. The bathroom wasn't on the left anymore. It was on the right. His stomach tightened. Maybe we just remembered wrong. Lisa shook her head. No way. I've walked this hall 100 times. The bathroom has never been on that side. They tested it, opening the door. Sure enough, it was their bathroom. Same white tile, same shower curtain. But it was wrong. A sinking unease spread through Mark's chest. He tried to shake it off. It's got to be some weird trick of the brain. Stress, maybe. Lisa didn't respond. She was staring down the hallway, her face pale. The hallway was longer. Mark could have sworn it only had 4 doors yesterday. But now, there were 6. At the very end, a 7th. Another door that hadn't been there before. Lisa grabbed his arm. Mark, I want to leave today. He nodded, swallowing hard. I'll call the realtor. Daniel picked up on the first ring. Daniel, something's wrong with this house, Mark said. A long silence, then a forced chuckle. I get it. Old houses can be spooky, but trust me, nothing's... No. Listen, rooms are moving, doors are appearing. My wife is terrified, and I... Daniel hesitated, then in a much lower voice. I'll come by tomorrow. We can talk then. Mark started to protest, but Daniel had already hung up. Behind him, Lisa let out a shaky breath. Mark turned back to the hallway. The 7th door was slightly open now, and something was watching. The couple ran to their bedroom, locked the door, and went to bed, terrified. Mark woke to silence. At first, it seemed normal. The room was dark, save for the faint glow of the street lamp outside. He reached across the bed instinctively, searching for the warmth of Lisa's body. But her side of the bed was cold. Mark sat up. Lisa? No answer. He glanced at the nightstand. Her phone was still there, the screen dark. The digital clock read 3:12 a.m. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed, heart hammering against his ribs. The air felt thicker, heavier. He hadn't noticed it before, but the house smelled different now, a strange, damp scent like rotting wood left out in the rain. He moved through the darkened hallway, checking the bathroom. Empty. The guest room. Empty. The kitchen. No sign of her. By the time he reached the front door, his hands were shaking. He grabbed the handle and twisted. It didn't move. Mark frowned and pulled harder. The lock was undone. The deadbolt wasn't engaged, but the door felt like it had been welded shut. He turned to the nearest window and tried to pry it open. It wouldn't budge. He pounded on the glass, but it barely rattled. A chill ran down his spine. The house wouldn't let him leave. Somewhere upstairs, a soft creak echoed through the halls. Mark spun around, his breath catching in his throat. Lisa. Silence. Then another creak. He grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and rushed back toward the stairs. His mind raced with rationalizations. Maybe she had woken up and wandered into one of those weird new rooms. Maybe she had heard a noise and gone to investigate. But then, why was her phone still by the bed? He reached the top of the stairs. The hallway stretched before him, impossibly long. The 7th door was wide open now. A black void yawned beyond it. Mark swallowed the lump in his throat. He took a cautious step forward, shining the flashlight inside. The beam barely penetrated the darkness, as if the light itself was being swallowed. Then, deep within the shadows, something moved. A whisper of fabric, a shifting shape. A hand slammed against the inside of the wall. Mark stumbled back, his pulse roaring in his ears. The fingers were long and too thin. The nails scraped against the wood, slow and deliberate. A dry voice rasped from the void. "Help me!" It was Lisa's voice, but it wasn't Lisa. Mark bolted. He ran back down the stairs, nearly tripping over his own feet. The walls seemed closer now, squeezing inward. The air was thick, humid, alive. He reached for his phone, hands trembling, and dialed Daniel's number. It rang once, twice, then, "Hello?" Twice. "Daniel," Mark gasped. "Lisa's gone. The house won't let me out. Doors are moving, rooms are appearing. I heard her voice inside the walls." Silence. He looked at the phone. No service. Daniel Whitmore sat at his desk, flipping through the property records for 142 Blackwood Lane. Mark Caldwell had called him in a panic, his voice shaking, talking about moving rooms, missing doors, and a wife that had vanished into thin air. He had tried calling him back, but it came busy. Daniel had tried to brush it off. But now, as he stared at the records in front of him, his gut twisted. He had sold this house before. Not once, not twice, dozens of times. The pages in his file were yellowed and brittle. Some of the sales he didn't even remember making. Yet there were his initials, his signature, the same agreements made over and over. He reached for his computer, pulling up the most recent listing. His stomach clenched. The square footage had increased, not by a little, not by an extra room or a minor expansion. The house was growing. Daniel flipped through the older listings, his breath quickening. The house had started at 2,100 square feet. Now it was over 4,500. But that was impossible. There had been no renovations, no contractors. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone. He dialed Mark's number again. It rang once, then twice. "Daniel," Mark's voice came through, breathless, frantic. "Lisa's gone. I woke up and she's just gone." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Mark, listen to me carefully. Don't go near the new rooms. Don't open any doors that weren't there before." Mark hesitated. "You knew? You knew something was wrong with this place and you sold it to us anyway?" Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. "I didn't," he exhaled. "I don't remember selling this house before. I should, but I don't. The house erases things." Silence. Then Mark whispered, "It won't let me leave." Daniel's blood ran cold. Mark's voice shook. I tried the doors, the windows. Nothing opens. The walls are making noises. I keep hearing her voice inside them, but I don't think it's really her." Daniel grabbed his coat. "I'm coming there now." "No," Mark's voice dropped to a whisper. "Come in the morning, not at night. It's different at night. I can't even call the cops. I have no cell phone service in the house, yet yours is the only call that came through." Daniel's mouth went dry. He stared at the newest listing, his own face smiling in the promotional photos. He didn't remember taking them. Mark sat on the edge of the bed, gripping his phone so tightly his knuckles ached. Daniel's words churned in his head. The house erases things. The phrase felt too big, too impossible. But everything about this place was impossible. Lisa was gone, and the house wasn't letting him leave. He swallowed hard and forced himself to move. He had to do something, anything. He tried the doors again, one by one, yanking on the handles until his hands hurt. The front door didn't budge. The kitchen window wouldn't even rattle in its frame. The house had sealed itself shut. He grabbed a chair from the dining room and swung it at the glass. Crack! The wood frame splintered, but the glass didn't break. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the house. Then from the walls, a muffled voice. Mark froze. It was Lisa's voice. "Mark?" He spun, heart hammering. The sound was coming from inside the walls. Mark pressed his ear against the drywall. A whisper, faint, garbled. "Mark, please." He reeled back. His breathing turned shallow. He knew Lisa's voice. Every inflection, every little rise and fall in tone. But this, it was close, but not quite right. Then another voice joined hers. A man's, fainter, more desperate. "Help me." Mark's stomach lurched. There was someone else inside the walls. No, there were many. The whispers layered over each other, multiplying. Some sobbed, some begged. Others only repeated his name. Mark, Mark, Mark. A soft knock sounded from the drywall. Mark's skin crawled. The wallpaper bulged. A human handprint pressed against it from the inside, fingers stretching beneath the surface. The plaster bent outward like skin over bone. Mark staggered back, pulse hammering. "Please," Lisa's voice whimpered through the wall. "Mark, it hurts. Please help me." His body screamed to run, but his hand moved on its own. He reached forward. A blackened fingernail burst through the wall. Mark jerked back just as a hand punched through the plaster, clawing wildly. It was not Lisa's hand. The fingers were too long, too thin. The skin was gray, sickly, damp. The moment it touched the air, it shriveled. The skin hissed and curled, as if burned. It withdrew back into the wall with a wet squelch. Mark stood there, shaking. A new voice rasped from the hole. Not Lisa, not a person at all. Something breathing, something waiting. And then the floor opened beneath him, and Mark fell into the dark. Mark hit the floor hard. For a moment, all he could do was lay there, gasping. His fingers dug into the wood beneath him, his mind scrambling to make sense of what had happened. The house had opened up beneath him, swallowed him. He pushed himself up, wincing. The room was wrong. It wasn't the hallway. It wasn't anywhere he recognized. The walls were too close together, the ceiling too low. The floor was no longer polished hardwood. It was soft, almost fleshy. Mark swallowed hard. The air was thick, humid. The smell of rot and damp wood filled his lungs, and then he felt it, a ripple beneath his palm. His breath hitched as he stared at the floor. It pulsed. The wood-like surface moved beneath his fingers, flexing like muscle. A deep, slow groan rumbled through the walls. Mark scrambled to his feet. The hallway ahead twisted, stretching longer, the door at the far end pulling away as if retreating. The house was shifting, shrinking rooms, narrowing spaces. It was closing in. Mark turned to run, but the walls shuddered. Something bulged beneath the wallpaper. A slow, wet movement. The plaster split. A blackened hand punched through, fingers twitching. Mark staggered back. Another hand burst through the opposite wall, then another, and another. Dozens of rotting hands clawed their way out of the wallpaper, their fingers stretching toward him. Some of them were small, childlike. Others too long, too thin, their nails ragged and curling. A choked sob crawled up Mark's throat. The hands weren't just reaching, they were pulling the walls closer. The hallway was shrinking. Mark spun and ran, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The floor softened beneath his steps, flexing under his weight. The walls breathed, contracting like lungs. The groan came again, longer this time, deeper. Mark didn't need to understand what was happening. He already knew. The house was digesting him. His foot caught on something. He fell, landing hard on something wet. Mark looked down and saw it. The floor had opened up, and beneath it, stretching into infinite darkness, was something alive, something that had been waiting. And then the walls slammed inward. Daniel parked outside 142 Blackwood Lane and immediately knew something was wrong. The house looked bigger. It was subtle. An extra window that hadn't been there before, a new angle to the roof that seemed wrong. But Daniel had been selling houses for over a decade, and he noticed details. He stepped out of the car, hands clammy. He didn't want to be here. He had sold this house before, too many times. Each time the owners vanished. Each time the house grew. And now Mark and Lisa were next. Daniel reached the porch, hesitating. The front door was ajar. Something felt different. Off. He pushed the door open. The inside was dark, not normal dark, thick dark, like stepping into a closed mouth. He pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows, illuminating the grand hallway. Something was wrong. The house was bigger than before. He had walked this hallway a dozen times, but now it stretched too far. The ceiling loomed higher. The staircase curved at an angle it hadn't before. Daniel's pulse quickened. Then he saw them. People. At first he thought they were portraits. Dozens of faces embedded in the wallpaper, their eyes open, darting wildly. Some had their mouths frozen in silent screams. Others had arms half pulled into the walls, fingers twitching. Daniel staggered back. His breath hitched as he recognized one of the faces, Lisa. Her mouth stretched wide, her eyes wet with terror. She blinked, then they all blinked. Daniel clamped a hand over his mouth, his legs trembled. This was what happened to the missing owners. The house didn't just take them, it absorbed them. A slow, shuddering creak filled the air. Daniel turned. A door at the end of the hallway swung open on its own. Something moved in the darkness beyond it. Then all at once every trapped face turned toward him. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. And then they started whispering. Daniel's breath came in short, ragged gasps. The whispers slithered through the air, dozens of voices overlapping, pleading, warning. The trapped faces in the walls twitched, their mouths moving in silent horror. Then footsteps, heavy, slow, coming from the darkness beyond the open door. Daniel spun around. The door he had entered through was gone. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He was trapped. Something shifted in the shadows. The air grew thick, suffocating. The wood beneath his feet groaned. The walls bulged as if something enormous was pressing against them from the inside. A long, low exhale rippled through the space. Then, a breath. The house was breathing. Daniel turned and ran. The hallway twisted as he moved, the floor rippling like muscle, shifting to keep him inside. He reached for a door, but it melted into the wall before his fingers could touch it. Another door appeared ahead. No choice. Daniel lunged forward, yanking it open. Beyond it, stairs stretched downward. The angle was wrong. The descent was too steep, the steps curving in on themselves like a spiral leading into something deeper than the foundation should allow. But the whispers were growing louder, and behind him, something was coming. Daniel took the stairs two at a time, the air turning hotter as he descended. The walls trembled, vibrating with movement. The stairs had no end. They stretched deeper and deeper, twisting in ways that made no architectural sense. And then the light changed. A faint glow pulsed from below, red and sickly. The air grew damp, the scent of rotting wood and decay thick in Daniel's throat. The stairs ended abruptly. Daniel stumbled forward into a massive open space. It wasn't a basement. It wasn't anything that should exist beneath a house. The floor beneath him was soft, wet. The walls were not walls. They were pulsing, veined, alive. Something moved in the dark, a slow, wet shifting. Daniel's flashlight flickered. The glow illuminated something vast, a mass of fused bodies, half-formed, stretched and twisted together. Arms merged into the floor, heads melted into the walls, and at the center of it all, something huge and waiting. Daniel's stomach dropped. Then it opened its eye. 3 days later, the for sale sign was back on the lawn. The house looked the same, untouched, clean, perfect. Inside, Daniel stood in the grand foyer adjusting his tie. His face was paler now, thinner. His once sharp blue eyes were dull, hollow, but he smiled. It was too wide. He turned as a couple entered, their faces bright with excitement. "You must be the Whitmores," Daniel said smoothly. His voice was even, practiced, warm. "Welcome to 142 Blackwood Lane." The husband, a tall man in his early 30s, took in the sprawling staircase, the polished wood. "Wow," he breathed. "I can't believe this place is still available." His wife nodded eagerly. "It's beautiful." Daniel's smile didn't waver. "It's been waiting for the right owners." The couple laughed, unaware of how true that was. He led them through the house, his footsteps light, almost rehearsed. The rooms were exactly as they should be, elegant, inviting, warm. The air smelled of fresh wood and vanilla, as if someone had just finished staging it. There were no strange doors, no moving walls, not yet. The couple fell in love instantly. By the time they reached the kitchen, the husband turned, grinning. "We'll take it." Daniel's heart barely beat anymore, but he still felt it. The house exhaling, settling. It was satisfied. They signed the papers. The wife shivered slightly as she handed over the last form. "Did you hear that?" Daniel's smile never faded. Just the house settling. Outside, the sky darkened. The trees stood too still. The windows looked darker now, watching. The couple stepped over the threshold into their new home, and as the front door swung shut behind them, the house got bigger. I've always been fascinated by the dark web. It's a place of endless mystery, where every click could uncover something extraordinary or extraordinarily bizarre. But nothing could have prepared me for what I stumbled upon last winter. It started on a frosty Thursday evening as I sipped hot cocoa and scrolled through a newly discovered forum known for its eccentric listings. That's when I saw it, an encrypted signal being sold for a substantial sum of bitcoins, claiming to originate from a place deeper than any submarine could reach, the depths of the Earth's ocean. At first, I thought it was just another dark web hoax, the kind that promised extraordinary secrets for a few digital coins. But something about the seller's note intrigued me. They claimed this wasn't just any signal, it was something ancient, something otherworldly. They had gathered a small following of curious minds, aficionados like myself, who formed a group dedicated to uncovering its secrets. Driven by curiosity and the thrill of a challenge, I decided to join them. Our group was diverse: a retired marine biologist, a couple of amateur cryptologists, and me, a techie with a penchant for the strange. We pooled our resources and after a tense couple of hours filled with technical discussions and negotiations, managed to acquire the signal. It was a stream of data, raw and unfiltered, like nothing we'd seen before. Over the following weeks, we worked tirelessly to decode it. The marine biologist, Dr. Elisa, suggested the frequency patterns resembled those of bioluminescent creatures from the deep sea, but distorted, as if passing through layers of water and rock we couldn't even fathom. The cryptologists, Tim and Jenna, worked on the encryption, arguing it was unlike any terrestrial cipher, almost as if it was designed to be read by non-human minds. The breakthrough came one quiet evening. I was alone monitoring the data when a sequence of symbols suddenly made sense. It wasn't just random noise, it was a message, a greeting almost. And it was old, incredibly old. The realization hit me like a wave. These signals weren't just bouncing around underwater, they were a communication from something ancient and sentient, residing in Earth's darkest, most unexplored depths. Our excitement was palpable. We had discovered what might well be the first evidence of an alien civilization, not light years away in space, but right here, beneath our oceans. But as we delved deeper into the decoding process, our excitement turned to unease. The messages began to reveal more about these beings, their observations of humanity, their thoughts, and most chillingly, their intentions. They spoke of waiting, watching from the shadows of the ocean, learning about our cultures, our wars, our triumphs, and our failures. They talked about the Earth as if it was something they cherished, but with a tone that suggested they felt it was mishandled, needing guidance or intervention. What started as a thrilling exploration had morphed into a sobering reflection. We weren't just decoding a signal. We were unraveling a disturbing revelation about our place in the cosmos in the eyes that watched us from below. As I turned off my computer that night, the weight of our discovery pressed down on me, and I knew sleep would not come easily. Whatever lay ahead, our little group had crossed a threshold into the unknown, and there was no turning back. With the discovery of the initial communication, our group's meetings grew more frequent and intense. Each session began with the same routine: a review of what we knew and a plan for how to proceed. It was during one of these sessions that Jenna brought a new perspective that would redefine our understanding of the signal. Jenna had spent countless hours poring over the decoded messages, looking for patterns or inconsistencies. Her breakthrough was not in the words themselves, but in their structure. "It's like they're using the ocean itself as a medium," she explained one evening, her eyes wide with the excitement of discovery. "The signal modulates in a way that mimics the ebb and flow of ocean currents. It's as if these beings are not just in the ocean, they are of the ocean." This insight led us to consult with Dr. Elisa, who shared fascinating details about deep-sea ecosystems and how many creatures communicate using light and chemical signals. "The ocean is not just water, it's a complex environment with its own language," she said thoughtfully. "If these beings have been here long enough, it stands to reason they've adapted to communicate in a way that's natural to their surroundings." Armed with this new understanding, Tim proposed a radical idea: to attempt a real-time analysis of the signal by simulating ocean conditions. We pooled our resources and set up a makeshift lab in my garage, equipped with speakers to mimic the ocean's acoustic properties and computers to process the data. The setup was rudimentary, but it was all we needed to start experimenting with real-time decoding. The first test was a failure. The sounds we produced were nothing more than garbled noise. But as we adjusted the frequencies and modulations based on Dr. Elisa's insights, we began to notice patterns emerging. The signals started to clear up, revealing complex sequences that resembled a form of dialogue. It was a stunning moment, sitting in a garage listening to the whispers of an ancient alien civilization. The more we listened, the more we learned about their perspective on the world. They spoke of the Earth's beauty and diversity, observed through the lens of a species that had seen continents shift and species evolve. Their messages conveyed a profound respect for life in all its forms, but also a sense of responsibility to protect it. One evening, as we sat listening to these messages from the deep, a new layer of the signal emerged. It wasn't just sounds. There were images, too. Faint and distorted at first, but gradually they became clearer. They showed us the ocean as they saw it, a vast, interconnected world teeming with life, but shadowed by the impacts of surface dwellers like us. Their message became clear. They had been guardians of the ocean, silently shaping its ecosystems and maintaining its balance. But now they sought to reach out, to share their knowledge and warn us of the consequences our actions had on the deep sea. Consequences we were barely aware of, but were profound and far-reaching. As the session ended and the others left, I remained behind, staring at the screens that still flickered with the last of the images. It was both humbling and terrifying to realize how little we knew about our own planet and the entities that might share it with us. The thought lingered with me long into the night, a reminder of the vast unknown that still awaited us. The revelation of the Oceanic Guardians opened a new chapter in our quest. With the newfound understanding of their visual language, our group was eager to delve deeper into the mysteries of the signal. As the decoded messages grew more detailed, so did our understanding of these ancient beings and their plea for humanity. Dr. Elisa took the lead in this phase, her expertise in marine biology proving invaluable. She hypothesized that the Guardians might be using bioluminescent patterns not just for communication, but also for influencing marine life behavior, possibly even contributing to the ecological balance of the ocean depths. This idea sparked a series of experiments where we simulated deep-sea conditions to observe how these patterns might affect earthly marine species. Our garage lab turned into a bustling hub of activity, with aquariums housing various deep-sea creatures, and our equipment fine-tuned to replicate the environmental conditions of the ocean's abyss. The Guardian signal was played back to these creatures, and to our astonishment, we observed subtle changes in their behaviors. Some appeared more vibrant, others more active, as if the signal had a revitalizing effect on them. These observations led to a deeper discussion about the potential of these communications. What if their signals are not just messages, but also a form of care for the ocean? Jenna pondered one evening, as we watched a group of jellyfish pulsate rhythmically to the sounds of the signal. Maybe they're caretakers, using their knowledge to preserve life down there. The more we learned, the more we realized the weight of the Guardian's message. They were not just observers, they were stewards of the deep, maintaining the health of an ecosystem unseen by human eyes, yet integral to our planet's biodiversity. Their plea became clearer with each decoded message. They urged us to understand the interconnectedness of all life on Earth, highlighting how surface activities like pollution and overfishing were causing disruptions deep below. The Guardians detailed the cascading effects of such disruptions, from the smallest plankton to the largest whales, each species an essential thread in the tapestry of marine life. With this understanding, our group felt a growing responsibility to act. We decided to compile our findings and the Guardian's messages into a comprehensive report. Our goal was clear: to bring this knowledge to the surface and advocate for change. We reached out to environmental groups, marine researchers, and even policymakers, sharing our discoveries and the Guardian's plea for a more conscientious interaction with our planet. One evening, as I prepared the final draft of our report, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. From a curious click on a dark web forum to becoming advocates for a hidden civilization, our lives had changed in ways we never imagined. The screen in front of me not only displayed our report, but also echoed the Guardian's hope. A hope that by sharing their story, we might inspire a global shift towards greater environmental stewardship. As the night deepened, I sent out the report to our contacts, a small but significant step towards bridging the gap between the depths and the surface. The Guardians had reached out across the abyss of water and time, and now it was up to us, the surface dwellers, to respond. With a quiet sense of purpose, I turned off the computer, the Guardian's soft, pulsing signals still playing in the background, a reminder of the ongoing dialogue between our worlds. Our efforts to publicize the Guardian's message marked a turning point. The report, once circulated, sparked a wave of interest and concern. Environmentalists, scientists, and even the general public were captivated by the notion of an ancient, intelligent presence in the deep ocean, guardians who had observed us from the shadows, urging us to act before it was too late. The media coverage was overwhelming. Articles and news segments spread across the globe, each headline echoing the Guardian's plea for a renewed commitment to ocean conservation. It was during this whirlwind of attention that we received an invitation that would further our cause significantly. An international environmental summit focusing on ocean health invited us to present our findings and share the story of the Guardians as a keynote discussion. As the summit approached, our group prepared meticulously. Dr. Elisa spearheaded the scientific aspect, ensuring that our presentation was backed by robust data and research. Jenna and Tim focused on the technical side, creating simulations and visualizations that depicted the Guardians' communication methods and their potential influence on marine life. The day of the presentation, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Our audience included some of the most influential figures in environmental policy and science. As I stepped onto the stage, the weight of our responsibility was palpable. We were not just representing our group. We were the voice of the Guardians, relaying a message that transcended human borders and interests. Our presentation started with the discovery of the signal, detailing how our curiosity-led exploration had uncovered a profound truth about our planet. We shared videos of our experiments with marine life, showcasing the visible effects of the Guardian signals on the creatures of the deep. The audience was visibly moved, their faces reflecting a mix of awe and concern. Dr. Elisa took the stage to discuss the ecological impact of human activities on the ocean's depths. She provided evidence of disrupted ecosystems and declining species, linking these issues directly to surface activities like pollution and industrial fishing. Her talk was a powerful call to action, urging immediate and collective efforts to reverse the damage. Jenna and Tim concluded the presentation with a technical demonstration, showing real-time data and simulations of how the Guardian's communications could potentially be harnessed to stabilize and restore marine environments. They proposed a global project to monitor and study these signals further, suggesting that understanding this ancient communication could be key to our environmental strategies. The response was more enthusiastic than we had dared hope. Discussions that followed were charged with urgency and a new perspective on ocean conservation. Several organizations expressed interest in funding our research, while policymakers discussed the potential for new regulations that would protect deep-sea environments. As the summit concluded, our group gathered, feeling a mix of exhaustion and elation. We had done more than share a discovery. We had ignited a global conversation about our planet's hidden depths and the unseen guardians who had reached out for help. Leaving the summit, I looked over the city from my hotel window, the bustling streets below, unaware of the profound connections just revealed. In the quiet of my room, the significance of our journey settled in. We had started as a small group of dark web enthusiasts and had become part of a larger narrative, a call to safeguard the unseen wonders of our world. As I turned in for the night, the thought was comforting yet daunting, a reminder of the ripple effects one discovery could have, spreading far beyond the confines of our small initial gathering. In the weeks following the summit, the momentum we had ignited only grew stronger. The story of the Guardians and their message resonated globally, inspiring a series of initiatives aimed at protecting our oceans and understanding the complex life forms within them. One of the most significant outcomes was the establishment of the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative, DOSI, a collaborative effort between governments, research institutions, and environmental organizations. The initiative aimed to explore and protect the deep ocean, fueled by the Guardian's messages and our findings. Our group was invited to join DOSI as key advisors, providing insights from our unique experience with the signal. Our first project under DOSI was the Guardian Project, a sophisticated monitoring system designed to detect and interpret signals similar to those we had uncovered. The system would be placed in various deep-sea locations around the world, using cutting-edge technology to listen to and document the communications of the Guardians and potentially other deep-sea entities. As the project took shape, our days were filled with planning sessions, technical developments, and frequent trips to coastal sites. Dr. Elisa coordinated with marine biologists and oceanographers to ensure that our monitoring efforts were environmentally sound and scientifically valuable. Jenna and Tim spearheaded the development of the signal detection software, incorporating artificial intelligence to help decipher the complex patterns we expected to encounter. The public's interest in the Guardians and their message also sparked educational campaigns. Schools around the world introduced modules on deep-sea ecology and the importance of conservation, featuring the Guardian's story as a case study of the mysterious life forms that inhabit our planet. Children learned not only about marine biology, but also about the Guardian's ethos of respect and stewardship for the environment. Meanwhile, our efforts to disseminate the Guardian's message continued. We organized public talks, participated in documentaries, and collaborated with media outlets to keep the story alive and relevant. The Guardians had become a symbol of the hidden wonders and the intrinsic value of our planet's least understood habitats. As the first anniversary of the summit approached, DOSI organized a global conference to share progress and plan future directions. The conference was held near the ocean, its vast blue expanse a perfect backdrop for discussions about its depths. During the conference, we unveiled the first results from the Guardian Project. The monitoring systems had detected similar signals in several locations, confirming that the Guardians were not an isolated phenomenon. These findings prompted discussions about the possibility of more extensive, interconnected systems of communication among deep-sea life forms. The conference concluded with a declaration to expand the Guardian Project and increase global efforts for ocean conservation. Our closing speech highlighted the journey from curious explorers of the dark web to advocates for one of Earth's most mysterious and vital ecosystems. We emphasized the role of technology in bridging gaps between worlds and the importance of listening to the less heard voices of our planet. Returning home from the conference, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment and anticipation. The Guardians had changed our lives in ways we could never have imagined, leading us on a path of discovery, advocacy, and global change. As I sat by my computer, now a gateway to more than just the dark web but to understanding and protecting the depths below, I realized the true impact of our journey. It was not just about decoding a signal, it was about responding to a call from the deep, a call to protect and cherish our planet's hidden treasures. As I logged off for the night, the soft hum of the ocean seemed to echo through the air, a constant reminder of the deep and mysterious world waiting just out of sight, but never out of mind. I've always been fascinated by space, not in the way a scientist is with theorems and calculations, but in a more human way. It's the same awe that makes you sit outside on a clear night, craning your neck to see stars that have been dead for millions of years. Space is big, unknowable, and impossibly old, and sometimes it feels like it's waiting for us to pay attention to it. That's how I ended up in a dark web forum called Deep Echoes. It wasn't illegal, but it was niche. A small group of amateur astronomers, signal enthusiasts, and conspiracy theorists had come together over a shared interest in deep space radio transmissions. Most of the posts were harmless, people analyzing static bursts from satellites or speculating about rogue planets. It was the kind of place where people obsessed over whether a blip in a spectrogram might be an alien civilization. When the news broke about K218b, the forum exploded. NASA had detected a potential biosignature in the exoplanet's atmosphere. Water vapor, methane, stuff that hinted at the possibility of life in its ocean-covered depths. It was all over mainstream media, but on Deep Echoes, it was like someone had lit a match in a room full of fireworks. Threads sprang up dissecting every detail of the discovery, and theories ranged from bacteria in the clouds to advanced aquatic civilizations sending signals to us. That's when one of the admins, a guy named Celestial Survivor, posted something that changed everything. He'd intercepted what he called an anomalous signal from the direction of K2-18b. It wasn't some random burst of static or an easily dismissible radio wave from Earth. This was structured, patterns repeating at intervals that didn't seem natural. He uploaded an audio file and a spectrogram, challenging the group to help decode it. I hesitated before downloading the file. It wasn't that I was worried about malware or anything like that. Deep Echoes was full of careful nerds who wouldn't risk corrupting their machines. But there was something about the way he described the signal that felt off. He called it melodic and disarming, which didn't fit with how you describe a distress signal or even something mechanical. Against my better judgment, I clicked play. The sound was unlike anything I'd heard before. It started as a faint hum, almost like the low thrum of a far-off engine, but layered with something higher-pitched. Not quite a whistle, but more like the sound glass makes when it vibrates. As it progressed, I realized there was a rhythm to it, a sequence that looped in a way that felt purposeful, like it was trying to communicate something just out of reach. It wasn't alarming exactly, but it lingered in my head long after I closed the audio file. The forum came alive with theories. Some said it was an artifact of an old Earth satellite bouncing back. Others believed it was a coded message from an advanced civilization beneath K218b's oceans. One user suggested it was a natural phenomenon, like whales communicating underwater, but on a planetary scale. I spent hours poring over the posts, watching as people dissected every frequency and waveform. Someone pointed out subtle variations in the signal, tiny shifts that almost sounded like words. Not in any language we'd recognize, but as if someone was trying to form words and just barely missing the mark. It didn't make sense for something that distant to sound so deliberate. Then things started getting weird. One of the more dedicated members, a user called Stellar Vortex, claimed he'd been analyzing the signal for days and began hearing things in it that weren't there before. He uploaded a new audio file, a slowed-down version of the original, and swore he could make out faint voices in the background. I listened to it, skeptical, but I heard it too. Not voices exactly, but something vocal, like distant murmurs underwater. Too faint to make out the words, but impossible to ignore once you noticed them. That's when the headaches started. It wasn't just me. Several people in the forum reported the same thing after listening to the slowed-down version. A dull, persistent ache behind the eyes, accompanied by an odd sensation of pressure. Not pain exactly, but an awareness that something was there. A presence, maybe. It sounds ridiculous, I know. It's just a sound file. How could it cause headaches? But as more people came forward, it became harder to dismiss. Someone ran the slowed-down audio through a spectrogram and noticed something alarming. Hidden within the frequencies were shapes, geometric patterns that didn't belong there. They looked almost like symbols. That's when the argument started. Half the forum thought it was proof of alien communication, while the other half dismissed it as a trick of the software or a hoax. I didn't know what to think, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd stumbled onto something we weren't supposed to. The tipping point came when Celestial Survivor posted a warning. Do not listen to the file anymore. Delete it. He didn't explain why, but the urgency in his post was enough to send the forum into a panic. People demanded answers, but he refused to elaborate, locking the thread and disappearing entirely. That night I couldn't sleep. The sound of the signal replayed in my head, unbidden, like a song you can't shake. For the first time, I regretted getting involved. Not because I thought I was in danger, but because I couldn't unhear it. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a feeling, something alive that had burrowed into my brain and refused to leave. I told myself I'd leave the forum and forget about the signal, but deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Whatever we'd uncovered wasn't finished with us yet. It was just beginning. After Celestial Survivor disappeared, the forum turned chaotic. Threads speculating about his abrupt warning filled the page, but no one could agree on what had happened. Some thought he'd been spooked by government agencies. Maybe someone had pressured him to stop sharing the signal. Others believed he'd decoded something in the audio that scared him enough to walk away entirely. I didn't buy the government angle. The file wasn't exactly top secret. It was floating freely on the internet, buried in a niche community. If it was really classified, someone would have shut us all down by now. Still, his silence unsettled me, and I wasn't the only one feeling it. In the days that followed, the forum became quieter than usual. Posts slowed to a trickle, as if people were deliberately keeping their distance from the signal. But I couldn't let it go. Something about it clung to me, demanding to be understood. I wasn't alone. A few of the more dedicated members started working together in private threads, sharing their findings away from the public eye. I got an invite to one of these threads, a small group led by Stellar Vortex. They'd been analyzing the geometric patterns embedded in the signal, convinced they held some kind of meaning. At first, the shapes seemed random, jagged lines and spirals that didn't form anything recognizable. But when someone overlaid them onto a map of Earth's oceans, the coincidences started piling up. Specific patterns aligned eerily well with real-world sonar data from deep-sea trenches and abyssal plains. It wasn't exact, but close enough to make us wonder. Was the signal referencing Earth's oceans, or was it just a strange overlap? We didn't know what to make of it. Maybe it was all confirmation bias, a bunch of overexcited amateurs seeing patterns where none existed. But the more we studied it, the harder it became to dismiss. One of the members, Cosmic Rift, pointed out that some of the symbols resembled archaic mathematical sequences, ones used centuries ago by early navigators mapping the sea. Maybe it's trying to communicate using concepts we already understand, Cosmic Rift suggested. Math and geometry are universal. If this is an intelligent signal, it might assume we'd recognize those patterns. It sounded plausible, but the implications made my stomach churn. If this was communication, it meant the sender wasn't just sending random noise. They were trying to be understood. And if the patterns matched Earth's oceans, it raised an uncomfortable question. Why? We worked late into the night, piecing together fragments of data, overlaying patterns, and running the signal through software filters. I couldn't tell if it was excitement or dread driving me, but I couldn't stop. That's when I made a discovery that sent a chill through the group chat. One of the symbols, when overlaid on an older map of Earth's tectonic plates, perfectly matched the outline of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Not close enough or roughly similar. It was an exact match. I uploaded the comparison, expecting skepticism, but the chat went dead silent for several minutes. Then, one by one, the others started responding. Impossible. That's not random. What does it mean? I didn't have answers. None of us did. But the coincidence was too striking to ignore. It was as if whoever or whatever sent the signal knew our planet intimately. I told myself it could be a fluke, some weird trick of probability. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. This wasn't just a random signal from the cosmos. It was precise, deliberate, and targeted. The real question was, how long had it been watching us? A few days later, Stellar Vortex announced he'd made progress decoding the vocal-like sounds buried in the audio. Using advanced spectral analysis, he'd isolated certain frequencies that seemed to overlap, creating what he called proto-syllables. It wasn't a language exactly, but it had the cadence of one, rising and falling like someone trying to speak but struggling to form coherent words. He uploaded his findings to the private thread, and I made the mistake of listening to them alone in my apartment late at night. The audio was haunting, not in a horror movie way, but in how deeply human it sounded. The syllables were soft, uneven, and distorted, like a recording of someone speaking underwater. I couldn't make out any clear words, but the rhythm was unsettlingly familiar. It reminded me of someone trying to whisper through a thick pane of glass. I played it again, focusing on the cadence, and noticed something odd. It wasn't random. There was a pattern. 3 soft syllables, followed by a pause, then 4 syllables and a longer pause. It repeated again and again like a heartbeat. I sent my observation to the group, and the others quickly confirmed it. The repetition wasn't natural. It was a deliberate sequence. But what was it saying? Before we could figure it out, Stellar Vortex posted something that changed the tone of the conversation entirely. I think the signal is responding to us. I stared at his message, unsure if I'd read it right. Before I could type a reply, he uploaded a new audio file. It was a short clip, just 10 seconds long, but it stopped me cold. The signal had changed. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the familiar hum now carried an extra layer. A faint echo like a mirror image of itself, slightly out of sync. It was as if the original signal had heard us analyzing it and decided to adjust. No one in the group could explain it. Radio waves don't just adapt on their own. Someone or something was behind it. And for the first time, I felt like we weren't the ones observing. We were being noticed. After Stellar Vortex posted the altered signal, the mood in our group shifted. What had been a collaborative project fueled by curiosity now felt heavier, like we were unraveling something too big for us to handle. The idea that the signal could respond wasn't just unsettling, it was outright baffling. For it to adjust itself in real time meant it was somehow aware of our actions. But how? The group chat buzzed with theories. Some thought it was just interference, a natural phenomenon we were misinterpreting. Others believed we'd triggered a programmed reaction by interacting with the signal, like a pre-recorded response waiting for the right input. A smaller, quieter subset suggested the most unsettling possibility, that something on K218b was actively monitoring us. For the first time, I considered stepping back, but I'd come too far to stop now. That night, Cosmic Rift proposed a bold idea. If the signal was capable of responding, could we send something back? It wasn't as simple as pointing a satellite and hitting transmit. We were amateurs, working with limited equipment, but Cosmic Rift had a setup, a backyard radio dish capable of transmitting low-power signals. He suggested encoding a simple sequence, a series of prime numbers. It was an unambiguous mathematical language often used in theoretical attempts to contact extraterrestrial life. The logic was that any intelligent being would recognize prime numbers as deliberate and unnatural. The group debated the risks. What if transmitting made things worse? What if the signal wasn't friendly? But curiosity won out, as it always does in situations like this. Late that night, Cosmic Rift uploaded a short recording of his transmission, a mechanical beep, beep, beep sequence interspersed with long pauses. It wasn't much, but it was enough to feel monumental. For hours, there was nothing. The forum stayed eerily quiet as we waited, refreshing the thread compulsively. I didn't expect anything to happen. It was one signal beamed into the vastness of space. The odds of a response were astronomically low, but then the signal changed again. Around 3 a.m., Stellar Vortex posted an urgent update. The original signal had shifted once more. The humming tone that had defined it for weeks now carried a secondary rhythm, sharp staccato bursts that didn't match the original cadence. At first they seemed random, but after analyzing the pattern we realized it was our prime number sequence, mirrored and repeated back to us. I stared at the spectrogram, disbelief washing over me. Somehow the signal had received our transmission and replied in kind. But it wasn't just mimicking us. The mirrored sequence was layered with additional tones, higher frequencies that weren't part of what we'd sent. It was like receiving an echo that whispered something extra beneath the surface. Cosmic Rift ran the new audio through several filters and isolated the additional frequencies. What he found made my stomach turn. The extra tones formed a pattern strikingly similar to human speech. It wasn't clear or decipherable, but the cadence was unmistakable. It rose and fell like someone trying to form words, almost as if the signal were learning how to communicate. "I think it's adapting to us," Cosmic Rift said in the chat. "It's trying to figure out our language." That night, I finally shut my computer down and tried to sleep. But instead of rest, I found myself trapped in a vivid dream. In the dream, I was underwater, not swimming but suspended, as if the ocean had no weight or resistance. Around me, faint lights shimmered in the darkness, pulsing in time with an inaudible rhythm. The sensation was oddly calming until I noticed the shapes. At first, they were just shadows on the edge of my vision, but they grew sharper, more defined until they resembled symbols. The same symbols we'd found embedded in the signal. They seemed to pulse with intent, drawing me closer. But before I could decipher them, I felt the distinct impression of being addressed. Not spoken to exactly, but noticed, like the way you might sense someone's eyes on you in a crowded room. It wasn't hostile or threatening, but it was undeniably present. I woke up in a cold sweat, the memory of the dream slipping away as reality reasserted itself. I told myself it was just my brain processing all the hours I'd spent analyzing the signal. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. When I logged back into the forum the next morning, I found a thread titled, "Did anyone else have strange dreams?" It wasn't just me. Several members described eerily similar experiences, dreams of water, lights, and symbols. One user, Deep Frequencies, claimed they'd heard the vocal tones from the signal in their dream, woven into a haunting melody. Another said they'd seen the Mid-Atlantic Ridge symbol, glowing faintly beneath the waves. None of us could explain it. The logical part of me wanted to dismiss it as coincidence, a shared phenomenon caused by our collective obsession with the signal. But another part of me couldn't shake the feeling that the signal was reaching out in ways we didn't fully understand. The forum's mood had changed. Excitement gave way to unease as people began questioning what we were doing. Were we really uncovering something groundbreaking, or were we meddling with forces beyond our comprehension? A few members suggested shutting the project down entirely. Stellar Vortex disagreed. "We're too far in to stop now," he he argued. "Whatever this is, it's intelligent. It wants us to understand. Don't you want to know what it's trying to say?" I wasn't sure I did. By the time we received the third change in the signal, the forum was divided into two camps. Those who believed we were on the brink of a monumental discovery, and those who thought we were crossing a line we didn't fully understand. I found myself somewhere in the middle, still curious but increasingly uneasy. The latest version of the signal was the most complex yet. What had started as a simple rhythm had evolved into something that sounded layered. It wasn't just the original hum or the mirrored prime numbers. There were now subtle variations in tone and pitch, as if the signal were experimenting with its own voice. What unnerved me most wasn't the sound itself, but what it suggested. Each change seemed deliberate, like a teacher refining a lesson for their students. The signal wasn't just responding to us. It was learning from us. One of the quieter members of our group, Nova Trace, had been running the signal through a sophisticated algorithm designed to identify patterns in natural phenomena. What he found wasn't what anyone expected. "It's coming from a narrowband frequency," he explained in the chat. "The kind satellites use to communicate. This isn't random noise, it's being broadcast intentionally." That revelation hit harder than anything we'd uncovered so far. Up until that point, we'd been operating under the assumption that the signal was some kind of anomaly, something natural that we'd stumbled across by chance. But this changed everything. If the signal was deliberate, it meant there was someone or something on the other end. But why use a frequency we could detect? And more importantly, why aim it at us? The group was split over what to do next. Some wanted to push forward, theorizing that the signal might hold answers to questions humanity had been asking for centuries. Others argued we were meddling with forces we didn't understand. "It's not our place to decode this," Skylattice wrote. "We don't know what we're inviting." That thought had crossed my mind more than once. If the signal was intelligent, it might not see us as equals. What if its intent wasn't benevolent? Or worse, what if our attempts to communicate were misinterpreted as hostility? Despite my reservations, I couldn't bring myself to leave the group. The pull of the unknown was too strong. Whatever this was, it felt significant, like we were on the verge of something that could redefine humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Late one night, Cosmic Rift proposed another experiment. He'd been working on a way to encode images into radio waves and suggested sending a series of simple visual patterns back to the signal. The idea was to test whether the sender could interpret something more complex than numbers. The group debated the idea for hours. Some worried it was too risky, while others argued it might finally give us insight into the signal's true intent. Eventually, curiosity won out. The first image was simple, a series of concentric circles meant to represent sound waves. The second was a basic diagram of Earth's position in the solar system, modeled after the plaques sent with the Voyager probes. We transmitted the images using Cosmic Rift's equipment, then waited. For nearly 2 days, there was nothing. The forum went quiet, the long silence gnawing at our nerves. I found myself obsessively checking for updates, hoping for a reply but dreading what it might mean if one came. When the signal changed again, it was subtle. At first, we thought it was just more tonal variations, but as we analyzed it, we realized it wasn't sound at all. The new layer wasn't audible, it was data. Using the same software we'd used to encode the images, Nova Trace decoded the response. What he found stopped us in our tracks. The signal had sent back an image. It was crude, made up of dots and lines, but the resemblance was unmistakable. It was Earth, or at least an abstract representation of it. The outline of the continents was imprecise, but the intent was clear. The signal had understood our message and replied in kind. I stared at the image on my screen, my mind racing with questions. How could something 120 light-years away recognize Earth? Was it an old signal from one of our own probes, bouncing back to us? Or had something, or someone, been studying us all along. The implications were staggering, but one detail overshadowed everything else. In the corner of the image, barely visible among the noise, was a new shape, a symbol we didn't recognize. It wasn't random, it was deliberate, and it didn't match anything we'd sent. The symbol became the focal point of our efforts. It was simple, 3 interlocking circles, but its meaning eluded us. Some thought it was a signature, a way for the sender to identify themselves. Others believed it was a clue, a hint at something we were meant to discover. But as we worked to decipher it, something else began to happen. Members of the group started reporting strange phenomena, glitches in their equipment, distorted audio files, even power outages that coincided with their analysis of the signal. I didn't experience anything unusual at first, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the signal was present. It lingered in my thoughts, its rhythm and tones replaying in my mind, even when I wasn't actively listening to it. It wasn't fear, exactly, but an overwhelming sense of being part of something far bigger than myself, and for the first time, I wondered if we'd gone too far. The interlocking circles haunted us. They seemed so deliberate, so purposeful, but their meaning stayed maddeningly out of reach. Each of us in the group tried to interpret it through our own lens. Some thought it was a celestial map. Others believed it was a kind of mathematical constant, and a few thought it might represent cycles of time, energy, or even existence itself. But we couldn't agree on anything concrete, and that only made things worse. As the days passed, the symbol began to feel less like an answer and more like a question we weren't equipped to ask. The group, once buzzing with activity, began to dwindle. People who had been vocal and enthusiastic about the project started to grow distant. Some left without explanation, deleting their accounts entirely. Others posted long threads about their decision to step away, citing unease or a desire to not meddle in something beyond human understanding. I couldn't blame them. As much as I hated to admit it, I was starting to feel the same way. Something about the signal, the way it adapted, the way it responded to us, felt increasingly unsettling. It wasn't just that it was intelligent. It was that its intelligence didn't align with anything we could define. It didn't think like us. Despite the dwindling group, a few of us pressed on. Cosmic Rift proposed one last experiment, a direct question. If the signal was learning from us, he argued, maybe it was capable of answering. After much debate, we settled on a simple message: who are you? We encoded the question into a series of binary tones, taking care to keep the format consistent with our earlier transmissions. Late one night, Cosmic Rift sent the signal into the void, and then we waited. For hours, there was nothing. I stayed glued to my computer, refreshing the forum and watching for updates, but the thread remained eerily quiet. Just as I was about to call it a night, Stellar Vortex posted an update. It replied. The message was short, just 3 symbols encoded into the signal's tones. At first, we didn't recognize them. They didn't match anything in our earlier transmissions, nor did they resemble the interlocking circles. But when Novatrace ran the symbols through his software, he noticed something strange. They're letters, he said, or close to it. It's trying to use our alphabet. The symbols were crude and uneven, but their resemblance to the English letters was unmistakable. I am. The simplicity of the response hit harder than I expected. I am. 2 words, impossibly profound in their vagueness. It wasn't an answer. It was a statement, a declaration of existence. The group fell into silence as we tried to process what it meant. Who, or what, was this entity? Was it alive in the way we understood life? Was it aware of us as individuals, or did it see us as a collective whole? For days, we tried to decode the implications of the response, but the more we analyzed it, the more questions it raised. In the end, we reached no consensus. The signal offered no further replies, and Cosmic Rift theorized that it had said all it intended to say. But even as the group dissolved and the forum grew quiet, I couldn't let it go. The message stayed with me, its simplicity echoing in my thoughts. I am. It was both comforting and terrifying. A reminder that we are not alone in the universe, but also a stark acknowledgement of how little we understand. It's been months since the project ended. Most of the group has moved on, and Deep Echoes is little more than a ghost town now. The signal hasn't changed since its final reply, and no one has dared to send anything back. Sometimes I wonder if we made a mistake, if we poked at something better left undisturbed. Other times, I think we uncovered something extraordinary, even if we'll never fully understand it. I still hear the tone sometimes, unbidden in the quiet moments of my day. The rhythm, the hum, the faint echoes of a voice trying to reach across an unfathomable distance. It's not frightening anymore, just there. A subtle reminder that the universe is bigger and stranger than we could ever imagine. And though I may never know what or who was on the other end of that signal, one thing is certain: it knew us, it noticed us, and it wanted us to know it was there. I never thought that boredom and a late-night browsing session would lead me into the depths of the dark web and right into the middle of a hidden underwater mystery. As a digital archivist, my job usually involves the mundane, sorting through old digital files, preserving them for future generations. However, one night, curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself diving deeper than I ever had, not into the ocean, but into a corner of the internet that most people don't even think about. It started with a post titled "Unseen Footage from the Abyss Auction." The seller claimed they had obtained footage from a deep-sea exploration team that had gone missing near the Mariana Trench. According to them, the team had encountered something extraordinary before they disappeared. The post was vague, but the veiled hints at non-human technology and structures piqued my interest. It seemed outlandish, but the part of me that loves puzzles couldn't resist. I placed a small bid, more out of curiosity than genuine hope of winning. To my surprise, I won. Within hours, I was downloading a series of corrupted video files that the seller assured me held secrets worth more than I could imagine. As I pieced the fragmented data together, I realized that this was no ordinary footage. The grainy videos showed glimpses of what looked like massive geometric structures, unlike any coral reefs or underwater rock formations I knew of. The shapes were too symmetrical, too intentional. Intrigued, I dove into researching deep-sea expeditions in the Pacific, only to find that the team in question had been part of a funded scientific study, supposedly monitoring tectonic activity. Their last transmission had mentioned discovering anomalies on the ocean floor, and then nothing. They vanished without a trace, leaving behind families and a flurry of conspiracy theories. The more I dug into the videos, the more unnerving they became. There was a moment, about 15 minutes into the second file, where the camera panned across what looked like an illuminated path leading to a dark crevice. It was lined with what appeared to be smooth, glowing obelisks that pulsed rhythmically, as if breathing. None of this should have been possible at such depths where pressure would crush conventional materials. I couldn't shake the feeling that what I was seeing was evidence of something not just undiscovered, but not of this world. The footage showed more than just strange structures. There were fleeting glimpses of moving shadows, too quick to be captured clearly, that seemed to flit between the obelisks. Whatever they were, they moved with purpose and intelligence. The implications were staggering. Was it possible that there was a cover-up of extraterrestrial origins? Why else would such groundbreaking discoveries be traded anonymously on the dark web rather than being announced to the public? The deeper I went, the more I realized how naive I had been to think this was merely an interesting puzzle. What started as a quest for knowledge was quickly spiraling into a story that felt too big, too dangerous to fully understand. I knew I had to continue. I had to put together the entire story from the snippets of footage. Whatever the truth was, it lay in the full picture, hidden among hours of corrupted files and cryptic clues. My next step was clear. I needed to track down the other buyers to see if they would share their pieces of the puzzle. Only by combining all the footage could I hope to uncover the full extent of the mystery hidden beneath the waves. And so, as I prepared to reach out to others ensnared by this intrigue, I reminded myself that knowledge, especially of this magnitude, always comes at a cost. I was no longer just an archivist, but a guardian of secrets that others believed were too profound or too perilous to be exposed. What began as a simple click had led me here, to the brink of the unknown, and there was no turning back. As I delved deeper into the mysteries unveiled by the underwater drone footage, my role shifted from a passive observer to an active seeker of truth. The decision to contact other buyers was not taken lightly. Each message I sent was carefully worded, an invitation to collaborate on piecing together a puzzle that was far more intricate and potentially more significant than any of us had initially realized. To my relief, responses began trickling in. Among them was Alex, a marine biologist based in New Zealand who shared my fascination and concern over the footage. Alex had acquired a segment showing closer views of the pulsing obelisks, their surfaces covered in intricate patterns that resembled circuitry more than any natural formation. Together, we speculated about their function. Could they be energy sources, navigational aids, or something else entirely? Another key piece came from Lena, a software engineer from Germany, who had managed to enhance some of the darker segments of the footage. Her efforts revealed not just the eerie glow of the obelisks, but also faint outlines of what appeared to be mechanical debris scattered around the ocean floor. This was not a natural occurrence. It was clear evidence of technology that far surpassed our understanding. Each new discovery added layers to the mystery. Were these technological remnants evidence of an alien visitation, or had human hands placed them there buried away from prying eyes? The implications of either possibility were staggering. If extraterrestrial, it suggested a visitation history that could rewrite our understanding of the cosmos. If human, it pointed to a secret perhaps deemed too dangerous for public knowledge. As Alex, Lena, and I shared and debated theories, our digital correspondence grew into a makeshift research team. We were united by a drive to uncover the truth, but also by the unspoken understanding that such knowledge came with inherent risks. Despite this, the allure of the unknown propelled us forward. Our collective efforts eventually led to a breakthrough. Lena, applying a series of image enhancement algorithms, unveiled what was perhaps the most compelling piece of evidence yet: a sequence in the footage where shadows moved with clear intention, interacting with the technology on the ocean floor. These were no random flits of marine life, but deliberate actions that suggested intelligence and purpose. The more we watched, the clearer it became that we were observing a scene of maintenance or operation. The shadows worked with precision, adjusting and aligning components in a way that seemed routine. This revelation raised yet another question. Were these entities still down there? And if so, to what end? Driven by a mixture of dread and anticipation, we planned our next steps. Alex proposed reaching out to a contact of hers, a satellite imaging specialist who could possibly shed light on any recent activities in the area of the Mariana Trench. Meanwhile, Lena began working on a software that could simulate the environmental conditions observed in the footage, hoping to glean insights into the purpose of the technology deployed so far beneath the waves. As we each set to our tasks, I couldn't help but feel like we were mere inches away from a curtain that, once pulled, would show us a stage set with actors from beyond our wildest imaginations. The digital realm had brought us together, but it was the deep, dark ocean that would test the limits of our curiosity and courage. In gathering these shadows, we were perhaps also gathering storm clouds, but there was no turning back. The next phase of our journey would require more than just digital prowess. it would require facing the vast, uncharted waters of the Pacific, armed with nothing but our shared resolve to uncover the truth, no matter how extraordinary or unsettling it might be. With each revelation from the footage, the ocean's mysteries seemed to deepen, pulling us further into its enigmatic embrace. The satellite imaging specialist whom Alex had contacted was initially skeptical. However, curiosity won over caution, and soon she was supplying us with time-stamped images of the sea surface above the Mariana Trench. While these images offered no direct insights into the depths below, they showed irregular patterns of sea traffic in the area, patterns that suggested covert operations possibly tied to our submerged enigmas. Meanwhile, Lena's simulation became a virtual lab, modeling the oceanic conditions and the possible functionalities of the alien technology. Her breakthrough came unexpectedly when she correlated the obelisk's pulsing patterns with known sonar data. It appeared that these structures could be communicating, perhaps even transmitting data across oceanic distances, using a sophisticated form of sonar technology far beyond our current capabilities. This discovery led us to theorize that the obelisks were not just isolated structures, but part of a larger network, possibly a communication grid that spanned the globe's oceans. This network could be lying dormant, waiting for specific conditions to activate, or it could be functioning in a capacity we hadn't yet understood. Fueled by these findings, our trio planned a remote expedition. Using a contact of Lena's who operated ROVS remotely operated vehicles for deep-sea exploration, we arranged to send a drone to the site where the original footage was captured. Our goal was simple: obtain live feed of the site, potentially catching the shadows in action and gathering more data on the obelisk's purpose. As the day of the expedition approached, excitement was tinged with a whisper of apprehension. We were not merely observers anymore. We were participants in a narrative that stretched beyond the usual boundaries of human understanding. The night before the drone dive, I couldn't shake a vivid dream where the ocean's depths were lit by the same pulsing lights we'd seen in the footage, and shadows danced around me, whispering secrets in a language felt rather than heard. The day of the dive was a cocktail of anticipation and technical challenges. We remotely guided the ROV from Lena's workstation, our eyes glued to the screens. As the drone descended past the point where sunlight could reach, our only illumination was from the drone's lights, casting eerie shadows on the ocean floor. Suddenly, the drone's lights flickered upon something incredible. A new structure, not seen in the original footage. It was more elaborate than the others, a hub of sorts, with multiple obelisks interconnected by what looked like conduits. As we watched, a shadow moved across the structure, deliberate and focused. The drone's camera zoomed in, and for a brief moment, we caught a glimpse of what it was doing. It seemed to be repairing or activating the structure. The live feed provided a wealth of data, confirming some of our theories and shattering others. As we analyzed the footage, our chat was alive with theories and exclamations. The shadows were indeed real and seemingly custodians or engineers of this alien installation. Their purpose remained shrouded in mystery, but the implications were clear. We were not alone in utilizing the depths of the oceans, and the true nature of these depths had yet to be fully understood. This underwater venture had started as a scavenger hunt for lost footage, but had transformed into a first-hand investigation of an alien presence on Earth. As the ROV ascended back to the surface, we knew that what we had discovered was only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, to understand and possibly interact with these shadowy custodians of the deep. Our journey into the unknown had started with fragmented files on the dark web, but it had brought us face to face with realities that would redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. We were ready to dive deeper, armed with new data, new allies, and a new resolve to uncover the full story hidden in the unseen depths of the Pacific. As our makeshift team dove deeper into the implications of our findings, The significance of the underwater structures and their custodians began to resonate on a global scale. Our remote expedition had not only confirmed the existence of an advanced technology on the ocean floor, but had also captured clearer images of the beings interacting with this technology. The challenge now was to interpret this data without causing undue alarm or misunderstanding. Alex, with her background in marine biology, suggested that we approach an international oceanographic institute to seek expertise and possibly gain legitimacy in our further investigations. However, Lena and I were hesitant. The dark web origins of our discovery, coupled with the unknown intentions of these underwater beings, made us cautious about exposing our findings too broadly. Instead, we agreed to expand our collaboration to include a few trusted experts under strict confidentiality. The first to join us was Dr. Amelia Hart, an oceanographer renowned for her work on bioluminescent organisms and deep-sea ecosystems. When presented with our findings, Amelia was initially skeptical, but soon became one of the most ardent supporters of our research. With her input, we were able to theorize that the structures might be bioengineered, blending organic and synthetic materials in ways that human technology hadn't yet imagined. Our second breakthrough came when Lena managed to isolate a sequence in the footage that appeared to show a communication exchange between the shadows. This sequence was made up of pulsating lights and subtle movements that seemed rhythmic and intentional. Amelia, familiar with patterns of communication in deep-sea creatures, pointed out that these could be complex signals, not just random or mechanical outputs. Equipped with this new understanding, we constructed a rudimentary model to attempt communication. The idea was simple yet audacious. Use the drone to replicate the observed signals and see if the shadows responded. Preparations for this next step were meticulous. Every detail, from the timing of the signals to the positioning of the drone, was planned with precision. Finally, the day came to test our model. We gathered around Lena's workstation again, the air thick with anticipation. The drone was lowered to the communication site, and we initiated the sequence. At first, nothing happened, and a heavy silence fell over the room. But just as we began to doubt, the monitor flickered with life. The shadows approached the drone cautiously but curiously. The response was beyond our wildest expectations. The shadows mimicked the drone's signals, then altered them slightly. It was a dance of lights and patterns, a conversation of sorts, unfolding in the deep blue screen in front of us. We were communicating with an intelligence that was not human, an intelligence that called the darkest depths of the ocean its home. This interaction marked a pivotal moment in our journey. We had established a line of communication, however primitive, with beings whose existence was as profound as it was perplexing. The data we collected from this encounter provided invaluable insights into their mode of communication and hinted at their possible intentions. Our discovery had profound implications. It was no longer just about alien technology or the safeguarding of unknown entities. It was about understanding our place in a larger cosmos and how we might coexist with other forms of life. As we prepared for further communication attempts, we were aware that we were on the brink of a new frontier in human extraterrestrial relations. The journey had started with simple curiosity and led to a discovery that challenged our understanding of life on Earth. As we moved forward, our goals were clear: learn from these beings, understand their technology, and above all, ensure that this newfound knowledge was used responsibly and ethically. We stood at the threshold of a new era, ready to step into the unknown with open minds and a spirit of collaboration. With established communication channels open between us and the shadows beneath the sea, our project transitioned from mere observation to mutual understanding. The world beneath the waves was vibrant and complex, inhabited by beings who had mastered their environment in ways we had barely begun to comprehend. Amelia's theories about the bioengineered structures being part of a larger ecosystem began to take shape. These weren't just static installations, but living systems, part of the ocean yet distinctly apart. They thrived in the crushing depths, harnessing energies unfathomable to surface dwellers. Our interaction with these beings, whom we started to refer to as the Guardians, revealed that they were not only aware of our existence, but also curiously observant of our capabilities and intentions. The Guardians communicated through an intricate language of lights and patterns, each pulse potentially loaded with layers of meaning. Lena's enhancements to our communication model allowed for more complex exchanges. We learned that the Guardians had been on Earth for countless generations, their presence a secret sculpted by the ocean's depth and darkness. Their technology, as alien as it was, had adapted to Earth's conditions, merging with the oceanic environment to an extent that made it nearly indistinguishable from natural formations. In light of these discoveries, our team expanded to include anthropologists and linguists, aiming to better understand the Guardians' social structures and communication methods. Each session brought us closer to a rudimentary dictionary of their language, a compilation of knowledge that was as thrilling as it was daunting to compile. The ethical implications of our discoveries were profound. Debates ensued among our team about the ramifications of sharing our findings with the world. The potential for cultural shock and misinterpretation was high. Yet, the opportunity to bridge the gap between human and extraterrestrial life was a compelling argument for transparency. After much deliberation, we decided to prepare a detailed report, ensuring all data was verified and all conclusions were presented with care. This report would not be released to the public immediately, but first shared with an assembly of trusted global leaders and scientific bodies. Our hope was to create a framework for gradual disclosure, one that could facilitate a global conversation about the implications of non-human intelligent life sharing our planet. The day we presented our findings was filled with a palpable sense of history in the making. Screens around the room flickered to life, showing the deep-sea communications that had once seemed like pulses of alien light, but now felt like greetings from old friends. The room was silent, every eye fixed on the evidence of a world so close yet so alien to our own experiences. As questions began, they ranged from scientific inquiries to philosophical reflections. What did this mean for humanity's place in the universe? How would this change our understanding of life as a singular phenomenon tied to the surface of our planet? The discussions were intense but hopeful. There was a sense of unity, a shared responsibility to step forward into this new era thoughtfully and with great care. In the months that followed, the framework we established guided the slow release of information about the Guardians. Public reaction was one of awe and wonder, tempered by the careful stewardship of the narrative we had strived to maintain. As we continued our dialogues with the Guardians, we became mediators between two worlds, each vast, mysterious, and full of potential. Our journey had begun with a fragment of lost footage, a door ajar to possibilities unimagined. Now, standing at the threshold of new understanding, we face the future not with fear, but with the excitement of explorers on the verge of a new frontier. The ocean, once a place of impenetrable depths and darkness, had become a light, guiding us toward a deeper connection, not just with the unknown, but with ourselves and the cosmos around us. This was not the end, but a new beginning, the dawn of an era where humanity would not only find its place among the stars, but also beneath the waves,